This week marks 30 years since the unforgettable choke at Doak when Florida State made a miraculous comeback from a 31-3 deficit in the fourth quarter to tie Florida 31-31. That stunning game led to the NCAA instituting overtime rules a year later. And while FSU didn't go for the win with a 2-point conversion, it's clear to everyone, including Bobby Bowden himself, that had they tried, they would have converted.
"They're on their heels,"
Bowden said.
"We probably would have scored too."
This moment perfectly encapsulates rivalry week in college football, where tradition, passion, and pride override all logic. The sport may have changed with new conference alignments and the expanded playoff. Still, rivalry week remains one of the most anticipated and intense parts of the season, and this year, it holds significant implications for the college football playoff. First, let's talk about the Big Ten, where Michigan and Ohio State will face off again in the game. Michigan has won the past 3 meetings, and Ohio State coach Ryan Day feels the pressure. Despite being one of the most successful coaches in the program's history, a 4th straight loss to Michigan could lead to his firing. Even if Ohio State makes the playoffs, missing the Big Ten championship would be a crushing blow. Day called the game war and acknowledged the consequences, saying,
"Anytime there's a war, there's casualties."
Rivalry week isn't just about the big games. In the SEC, Auburn can dash Alabama's playoff hopes with a win at Tuscaloosa. Auburn hasn't won in Bryant-Denny Stadium since Cam Newton's 2010 squad pulled off the victory. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt, already with a signature win over Alabama, could knock Tennessee out of the race with a win in their rivalry game. Over on the West Coast, Oregon coach Dan Lanning faces Washington, a team that has dominated their rivalry recently. Lanning is 0-3 against Washington, but Oregon hasn't lost 4 straight to them since the early 90s. With both teams aiming for a spot in the playoff, this one carries massive stakes. Texas and Texas A&M are set to reignite their rivalry, which hasn't been played since 2011. After Texas A&M moved to the SEC, the two schools have been at odds over everything from conference realignment to rivalry bragging rights. The Aggies have had their frustrations, especially since Texas seems to be finding success in the SEC much faster than they ever did. But the 1999 rivalry remains a poignant moment in history. The aftermath of the bonfire tragedy the night before the game made that win all the more emotional, and both fan bases remember it well. Then, there's Southern California, which, despite a season full of heartbreak and close games, can still play spoiler. A win over Notre Dame would give USC a much-needed boost and eliminate the Irish from playoff contention. Arizona, which has struggled in recent years, can also play the role of playoff spoiler by defeating Arizona State. The Wildcats haven't won 3 straight in the series since the 1990s, and a victory here would end the Sun Devils' playoff hopes. Rivalry week brings the chaos and excitement we love about college football. It's not just about the teams, but the energy and passion of these historic matchups. Whether it's a coach on the hot seat, a team trying to secure a spot in the playoffs, or a rivalry with decades of history, Rivalry Week delivers. Celebrate it, because in college football, anything can happen, and it usually does.